Welcome to Conan Exile's Age of Calamitous. Let's dive into plants and herbs in the Age of Calamitous mod. How do we collect them? Where can we find them? Let's break it all down. In this guide, I will show the areas where these resources are abundant. You can also use the Conan Exile's vanilla interactive map to locate more locations for these resources. I'll leave the link in the description. Let's start with Aurora Herb. The primary sources of Aurora Herb are aloe and yellow lotus. The secondary source is purple lotus. Aloes and yellow lotuses are usually found along the river in the desert. For example, from here to here, there is also an area which I call the Aloe Heaven in J7. If you are from the Elven Covenant, you should be able to harvest a good number of aloes, yellow lotus, and purple lotus in your faction hub. To easily spot the plants you are looking for, I suggest you set your foliage settings to low. Always remember that you will get higher yield of resources. The better the tool and the higher your tool skill level. Next is bitter crinilla. The primary sources of bitter crinilla is Tur indigo. There is no secondary source so far. True indigo is usually found in the jungle side of the map. For example, near the Eastern Barracks. This area also has a lot of purple lotuses if you are harvesting earth power gems for earth magic. Next is bluebell. The primary sources of bluebell is false mandrake. There is no secondary source so far. False mandrake is usually found in the northern side of the map. For example, around the new Ossigarth. It looks almost the same as the gray flower lupine. But if you look closely, the flower of false mandrake is purple, while the flower of gray flower lupine is white. Next is Calathea. The primary sources of Calathea is orange ficus. There is no secondary source so far. Orange ficus is found in the river underwater, for example, the Noob River, stretching from the dregs towards the jungle. There are a lot of orange ficus as well in the lake surrounding the Black Keep. Next is dragon fern. The primary sources of dragon fern is gray flower lupine. There is no secondary source so far. As I've mentioned earlier, they are abundant in the northern side of the map around New Ossigarth. It looks almost the same as the false mandrake, but if you look closely, the flower of gray flower lupine is white, while the flower of false mandrake is purple. Next is firebloom. The primary sources of firebloom is black lotus. There is no secondary source so far. There are only two locations where you can find black lotuses. One is in the Black Garden near the Witch Queen's palace. Bring a sandstorm mask to protect yourself from the noxious gas in the area. The other one is in H2 and I2, where the Essence of Harbinger is. So, this place is not a good idea if you are still low level in the game. But if you are crazy enough, well, sure, why not? Next is lunar hemp. The primary source of lunar hemp is midnight blue. The secondary source is true indigo. Midnight blue flowers can be found on the northeastern part of the map towards and around the Mounds of the Dead. And as mentioned earlier, true indigo is usually found in the jungle side of the map, which can also give you bitter crinilla. So, if you want efficiency, practicality dictates that the best choice is to farm true indigo, since it gives you both lunar hemp and bitter crinilla. But if you want the most number of yield, then the primary source would be the best route. Next is shadow flower. The primary source of shadow flower is glowing goop. The secondary sources are midnight blue and purple lotus. The place that I usually go to gather glowing goop is in E11 because there are tons of it underwater, lining up going to the underwater entrance to the Black Keep. But you need to have a good cold insulation and breathing utilities like potions and water magic passive. There's a lot of it also when you go to the Sunken City. For early levels, I would recommend the Dregs. Or if you are in the Forsaken Legion Alliance, there are some glowing goop that you can harvest inside the Shadarian faction hub. Next is Widow's Leaf. The primary source of Widow's Leaf is false mandrake. The secondary source is gray flower lupine. Both of these plants are usually found in the northern side of the map around the New Asagarth. Lastly, as a bonus, Vulcan Bee. Vulcan bees have a very low drop rate and can only be harvested from a specific type of bush. This bush is very common in the desert area, especially near the Noob River. The area I called Aloe Heaven earlier was also full of this type of bush. The best way that I can describe the bush is that it's not too green and it looks a bit withered, while its stalks are showing a bit from the grown. Not this one. This bush is too green, too healthy looking. And also not this one. The stalks of this bush is too tall as well. What you want to find is this. Leaves are not too green and a bit withered, and stalks are showing a bit from the grown and doesn't bear fruit or berries. Always use your best sickle to have the best chance of getting the random drop of Vulcan bees. Finally, the most important thing that you need to remember is that you can buy these things from the merchants in the faction hub if you are rich in crown coins. You can buy the seeds as well if you are planning to do planting in your game for resources. That would be all for now. Bye.